His cooperation was critical. In all these operations, you have to have some luck. Call this the lucky stroke.
Originally, it was Task Force 20, a highly classified special operations force that was given the job of tracking down Saddam. In the 8-month hunt for him, there were some near misses. At least twice, U.S. forces raided houses where they believed they missed Saddam by less than 24 hours.
Part of the problem you have when you're getting real-world intelligence or time-sensitive intelligence is you have to act on it in a short period of time. Intelligence is not permanent. It's perishable.
Near the end of the hunt, intelligence sources believed they were so close to Saddam that they were forcing him to change locations every 2 to 3 hours.
And the more that he is on the move, then that only increases the chances of him being captured.
On December 13, 2003, all the hard work finally paid off. A 600-man force composed of troops from the 4th Infantry Division and Special Operations Forces found a bedraggled Saddam inside a spider hole on a farm only miles from Tikrit, his hometown.
Ladies and gentlemen, we got him. It is certainly a shocking come down for the man who built palaces like this, who traveled in armored Mercedes and who stole hundreds of millions of dollars from his people. It was a real come down and a real fitting end.
With the successful capture of Saddam, only now can the behind-the-scenes details of the intense 8-month hunt for him be revealed. Tracking down Saddam begins on the afternoon of March 19, 2003, just hours before the U.S. imposed deadline for him to give up power. The CIA receives a jaw-dropping message over its classified communications network. An Iraqi official has turned on Saddam, and U.S. intelligence sources have an exact fix on where he and at least one of his sons will be that night.
There's only a select few people around Saddam Hussein that know his whereabouts. So what that indicates is the Americans have managed to penetrate one of the hardest to penetrate security units in Iraq.
In Washington, President George W. Bush huddles with his top advisors, weighing his options. If they move fast enough, the military could decapitate the regime before the first tank even rolls into Iraq. Half a world away at the Combined Air Operations Center in Saudi Arabia, Major Clint Highnote, the liaison officer for F-117 stealth fighter pilots, gets the first indication that something big is up.
I walked in, I looked at the computer screen, and the #1 target said possible location Saddam.
Moments later, the head of Air Command lays it on the line for his men, saying, "We owe the president an answer. Can we do this mission? And if so, what is the risk?"
I said, "Sir, we can do this, but I think the risk is going to be pretty high."
There are only 4 hours until daylight. The fighter pilots will be at risk without the cover of darkness, as Iraqi air defenses have yet to be tested. Major Highnote relays the orders over a secure phone line to the F-117 pilots at the U.S. Air Base in Qatar. Lieutenant Colonel David Toomey is one of 2 pilots who will carry out the top-secret mission.
We got notified, I think, around 1:30 in the morning, and we had bombs on target 4 hours later.
The pilots load their EGBU-27 bunker-busting bombs and take off for Baghdad. Meanwhile, the Navy launches 3 dozen Tomahawk missiles from warships in the Persian Gulf and the Red Sea. Just before dawn, they take out 3 buildings on the surface. Moments later, the F-117 zero in on what they believe to be the underground bunker where Saddam is sleeping.
At about 05:30, we came across the target, one in from the west, one in from the east. The target was along a river, I believe they call it the Dora Farms, and we dropped 4 2,000-pound weapons on this underground bunker at 5:30 in the morning.
We were watching Sky News of Britain, and they were the first to say, "There's been a big explosion in southern Baghdad." And that's how we knew that they had made it through and gotten their bombs off.
But did they get Saddam? Part of the answer comes from the National Security Agency, or the NSA, seen in this exclusive behind-the-scenes video. The NSA has a secret, sophisticated computer software system called Echelon that helps filter millions of phone calls worldwide. An agent can punch in the word Saddam, and Echelon will present all the communications with the word Saddam in them. It's so secret, no one inside the government will acknowledge it exists. The morning of the strike on Saddam's bunker, Echelon pinpoints frantic calls for medical assistance there. Someone has been hit, but no one knows if Saddam is the victim. A bodyguard of Uday Hussein would later claim that Saddam and his two sons were staying in a safe house on the other side of Baghdad that night. And further investigation on the site reveals there isn't even an underground bunker there. The intelligence was flawed.
Yeah, at the end of the day, he's still alive out there walking around, and we didn't get him.
On April 7th, the 20th day of the war, the U.S. military believes it has another very good shot at getting the Iraqi dictator. An Iraqi informant tells a U.S. operative on the ground that Saddam will be in a particular building in the Mansour district of Baghdad. Within hours, a B-1 bomber drops 4 satellite-guided 2,000-pound JDAM bombs on the target. 9 people are killed, 13 others wounded. But an exhaustive search of the site turns up no evidence of Saddam or his sons. Saddam had escaped.
He has a certain animal cunning, there's no doubt about it. He has survived a number of assassination attempts.
One of Uday's bodyguards later reveals that the bombs missed their mark by just 10 minutes. Saddam apparently suspected there was an informant in his camp. He requested a meeting with the informant in that building in the Mansour district. Saddam arrived. Then he left almost immediately by the back door. He outfoxed the U.S. forces, and according to the bodyguard, the informant was soon executed. The U.S. steps up the pressure, offering a $25 million reward for information leading to the capture or killing of Saddam. $15 million for each of the sons. In mid-June 2003, a local informant in Tikrit, Saddam's hometown, tips off Task Force 20 about a hideout where someone big is staying. In a nighttime raid, U.S. forces storm the house and realize they've nabbed the ace of diamonds, number 4 in the deck of most wanted Iraqis. Abid Hamid Mahmoud is Saddam's trusted personal secretary and confidant. Task Force 20 searches Mahmoud's hideout for intelligence that might lead them to Saddam. They find a satellite phone. A number stored in its memory leads them to another phone in the Iraqi desert. On the morning of June 18, 2003, President Bush is reportedly presented with solid intelligence that a convoy, including Saddam and his sons, is heading for the Syrian border. Initial clues may come from intercepts of calls made on that phone in the desert. Task Force 20 is waiting at the border.
All of this came, I presume, from signals intelligence, because I'm not aware of any other source that could have provided this information in such a rapid fashion, which would allow the Task Force 20 commandos to react as quickly as they did.
At about 8:30 that Wednesday evening, a convoy driving at high speed approaches. Several SUVs split off and race across the Iraqi border into Syria. The details of what happens next are murky, but these photos tell some of the story. By some accounts, for the next 24 hours, there is a massive manhunt along a 50-mile stretch of remote desert. Apache and Black Hawk helicopters fill the skies, while Bradley fighting vehicles race across the sand. Eventually, Kiowa attack helicopters and AC-130 gunships join the operation, attacking 2 other groups of vehicles heading into Syria. A gas station is apparently hit, causing huge explosions that light up the sky. Details of the operation are never officially released by the Pentagon.
We strafed and bombed the convoys in question. We killed a significant number of people. The only question is, did we, in the attack on these convoys, did we kill innocent Iraqis, or did we kill members of the Ba'ath Party or other Saddam loyalists?
In fact, the operation ended up carrying into Syria about 25 miles and killing about 80 Syrian military and police troops and capturing 20 Iraqis connected with this convoy who turned out to be smugglers of various kinds and had to be released.
Some U.S. military and diplomatic officials call the operation a fiasco, questioning how American forces could have crossed the border, violating Syria's sovereignty. And once again, there are no traces of Saddam or his sons. 3 strikes, based on what is believed to be credible intelligence, fail. The most powerful military force in the world, with the most sophisticated intelligence, will need something else to find Saddam Hussein. A little luck. It is now July 2003, 4 months into the war, with 150,000 U.S. troops occupying Iraq. Saddam Hussein, the ace of spades, is still managing to evade capture or death.
Most likely, rather than good intelligence or investigative work, if Saddam is caught or killed, it'll be on the basis of some individual walking in and providing us with a tip-off as to where he is.
That's exactly what would lead to the demise of high-value targets number 2 and number 3, Uday and Qusay Hussein. On the evening of July 21st, an Iraqi walks into a U.S. military field office in the northern city of Mosul. The man informs officials that he knows where they can find Saddam's reviled sons.
The home where Uday and Qusay were holed up, along with 2 other individuals, was in the home of a cousin of Saddam Hussein.
The very next morning, Task Force 20 and elements of the 101st Airborne Division come calling on the villa in an affluent neighborhood in northern Mosul. An interpreter using a bullhorn orders the occupants to come out.
They were not going to risk U.S. Special Forces lives by having them storm the house and shoot their way in. They were going to try to see if they could talk them out.
There is no response, so an assault force enters the villa. U.S. troops are immediately met with gunfire. 4 soldiers are wounded.
They fought pretty hard. They had a lot of ammunition. They had some AK-47s. The building's very solid.
4 attempts to storm the villa meet with intense gunfire from the second floor. Reinforcements are called in. 200 soldiers and Kiowa helicopter gunships fire anti-tank tow missiles into each window of the house.
The fact that the reports that they put as many as 10 tow missiles into it, that's a lot of firepower going into a building.
When the dust settles after a fierce 6-hour battle, there are 4 dead inside. Uday, Qusay, 1 bodyguard, and Qusay's 14-year-old son, Mustafa. The boy apparently survives the missile attacks and fires upon entering troops before he is finally shot and killed. Some Iraqis celebrate news of the deaths of Saddam's sons, but many others are skeptical, distrusting of anything the Americans tell them. The Pentagon decides to release photos of their bloodied and disfigured bodies as proof. It is apparent both men have grown thick black beards, possibly in an attempt to disguise themselves. Still, many Iraqis remain unconvinced.
My first opinion was, I couldn't accept this.
The Americans, they show what's good for them, and they hide what's bad for them.
The next day, the Pentagon invites journalists to view the remains of Uday and Qusay, now cleaned up, to look more like themselves. Meanwhile, Task Force 20 is back at the Mosul villa, sifting through the rubble for intelligence that might lead them to the prize. It turns out Uday and Qusay had been holed up with their distant cousin for more than 3 weeks.
You're going to look for any exploitable intelligence, cell phones, any kind of paper trail, any kind of notebooks to find out who they've been calling, if they've been writing names down. You want to try to build a profile of what their activities have been, where they've been, who they've been talking to.
It is widely believed that the owner of the house is also the informant. He collects the $30 million reward for ratting out his relatives. He and his family will be relocated to America. He can even become a citizen, all courtesy of the U.S. taxpayer. The hope is other Iraqis will follow his lead and give up Saddam.
when the Iraqi came forward and provided us with the information about where Uday and Qusay